To glamorize excesses is a fool's errand, but if such a task were ever to be undertaken, the encounter between Keith Moon and Oliver Reed would be its magnum opus, a staggering, slurring, riotous melee that history itself would struggle to contain. If boozing were a battlefield, then this fateful meeting would be akin to a sodden, surreal reenactment of the Battle of Waterloo, only with more collateral damage and significantly fewer survivors. The scene of this particular skirmish was Oliver Reed's stately Surrey mansion, a place more accustomed to echoing the growls of its bearish master than the frenetic chop of helicopter blades. On a day when the English countryside seemed determined to outdo itself in pastoral tranquility, a storm was brewing that had nothing to do with the weather and everything to do with the impending arrival of one Keith John Moon, drummer, madman, and a man not so much living on the edge as gleefully leaping off it, with a bottle in one hand and a Swedish blonde in the other. Reed, reclining in his bath, possibly rehearsing his next bout of unpredictable talk show antics, was oblivious to the approaching tempest. The surface of his bathwater, until now placid and serene, began to tremble. It wasn't the first time Reed had felt such a disturbance. Many a time, the rumbling aftermath of a particularly robust curry had sent similar shudders through his bowels. But this was different. The faint whine of an engine pierced the air, like the opening notes of Ride of the Valkyries echoing from the very heavens, and it was getting louder. Realizing that his digestive system was not the source of the disruption, Reed sprang from the bath like some bathrobe-clad action hero in a film that had yet to be made, let alone conceived by a particularly twisted screenwriter. Wrapping a towel around his waist with one hand and clutching a 12-gauge shotgun with the other, he bounded up the stairs to the roof. In a manner befitting a man who once declared his life's ambition was to drink every pub dry, Reed now resolved to bring down whatever was disturbing his peace with the fury of a man denied his post-bath pint. Meanwhile, in the cockpit of the helicopter, Peter Butler, Keith Moon's long-suffering accomplice, was having second thoughts. Actually, he was having fifth, sixth, and seventh thoughts, all of them revolving around his proximity to Moon and the increasingly erratic flying style of their pilot. To his side, the Swede, whose name Butler never quite caught, appeared nonplussed, her serene Scandinavian expression unchanging, even as Reed's mansion loomed closer, looking every bit the fortress of chaos it was reputed to be. The moment they crossed into Reed's airspace, chaos erupted. From the roof, the actor began to let loose a barrage of shotgun blasts, each one a resounding statement against unannounced visits by airborne rock stars. Moon, never one to shy away from a bit of dramatics himself, reportedly let out a whoop of excitement. Or was it terror? Butler couldn't tell, his own heart racing as the helicopter veered and dipped, attempting to avoid the worst of Reed's firepower. The pilot shit himself, Butler would later recount, though whether this was literal or metaphorical remains a detail lost to history. In a desperate attempt to avoid becoming part of Reed's impromptu skeet shooting session, the pilot executed a hasty landing on a field behind the mansion. The moment they touched down, the pilot, whose patience had clearly been strained to the breaking point, made his escape. Without so much as a backward glance, he sprinted off into the Surrey wilderness, presumably to live out his days in solitude, far from the maddening company of rock stars and actors. As the dust settled, Butler, Moon, and the Swede emerged from the helicopter, blinking in the daylight. It was then that Reed, shotgun still in hand, appeared before them. But instead of continuing the assault, he lowered the weapon and, in a gesture that could only have made sense in the context of a life like his, extended his hand. "Welcome to the house, boys," Reed boomed, his voice carrying the same gravitas that had once made him a cinematic force to be reckoned with. And with that, the battle was over before it had truly begun. The shotgun was stowed away, the air cleared of cordite, and Reed's wrath replaced by a camaraderie as bewildering as it was instant. For the next 3 nights, the mansion became ground zero for one of the most infamous benders in the history of British excess. Reed and Moon, 2 men whose capacity for self-destruction was matched only by their ability to charm the pants off a cobra, were inseparable. The Swede, as if sensing that her role in this drama was secondary at best, quietly disappeared at some point. Whether she left of her own accord or was spirited away by Reed in a fit of chivalrous debauchery, no one could say. The reason for Moon's unexpected visit? None other than Reed's casting in Tommy, the film adaptation of The Who's rock opera. Reed, cast as Tommy's menacing stepfather, was about to enter Moon's world, a world where the rules of conventional behavior were not so much bent as obliterated. It was a match made in the kind of heaven where angels wear leather trousers and drink whiskey by the pint. Though Tommy would go on to be a cult classic, the true spectacle was the friendship forged that day in Surrey. A friendship that, like all things Reed and Moon, was destined to be as tumultuous as it was enduring. In the end, the shotgun blasts, the near-death experiences, and the terrified pilot were all just part of the prelude to a partnership that would become legendary in the annals of British rock and roll. As for Reed's bath, it's anyone's guess whether he ever returned to it. One suspects that, like many things in the lives of these two men, it was abandoned in favor of a bottle and a night of unbridled chaos. After all, in a world where Keith Moon and Oliver Reed collide, anything as mundane as a bath is bound to be a casualty. And so, the legend of that day lives on, a story of madness, mayhem, and a friendship that began with a shotgun and a helicopter. It's a tale that reminds us that in the pantheon of British excess, Reed and Moon stand as gods among men, their exploits as timeless as the chaos they left in their wake.